Big crowds too now.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Princeton City Council to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Mabry.
Here.
Councilmember Newman.
Here.
Gomez.
Here.
McCall. Here. McCransky.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we have public comment period. We have public comment at the beginning of the meeting as well as at the end, and you're certainly allowed to speak at both times. If you have anything to say to the council, we'd be glad to hear it. We typically may not have an answer for you as you speak about something because we're not prepared necessarily to specifically answer questions, but we're glad you're here. So if you'd like to say something to the council as a whole, you come up to the microphone here and just state your name. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak to the council? Great. Come on up, please. And that microphone's already on, Jeff. You should be all set. Please just give your name and we're all set. Our names.
We are Jeff and Leanne Martin, and thank you for letting us talk tonight. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the council, Mayor Pete Nelson, and especially Police Chief Tom Kammerer and Amanda of the Animal Control for helping us dispute the neighbors, ducks and chickens at 515 Park Avenue West since summer of 2020. As of June 2023, an agreement was negotiated with 515 Park Avenue West to remove the ducks, and she would be allowed to keep the ungrandfathered chickens based on the ordinance that was in place September of 2022, as long as she follows the ordinance. It was violated as late as 8/3/23 at 5:30 p.m. when we spotted chickens in the unfenced yard area. We do admit that the chickens have not been seen in the unfenced area since that evening. However, recently, Friday the 18th, once again, she had a rooster, which Chief Kammerer and Amanda were notified and responded very quickly with a citation enforcing the ordinance. We hope the citations in the past and recently will be enforced as the law allows. At this time, we would like you to please note, though, that other ordinances that continue to be violated, primarily the International Property Maintenance Code, such as Chapter 3, 302.4, 302 regarding weeds, 302.5, road and harborage, open buckets and pans of collected water, 303.1, child swimming pools not maintained. She had them for the ducks, but she doesn't have ducks anymore, so she still has these pools. And 307 rubbish and garbage. We have pictures that we took even today. So anyway, we'd just like you to still look at those. I don't know who enforces those. I know Amanda probably would not, but since it's animal control, I don't know who enforces the other ordinances regarding what I just stated. So anyway, we just thank you for hearing us today.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate that. And we're glad to know that Tom's been working on this and as well as Amanda. So we appreciate their efforts too. Anyone else for public comment? Ma'am, please.
I'm Sam Fisher, Princeton resident, and I'm glad you started citing statute because that's what I want to do too. Many of you know I've been on at least over a 2-year quest to make sure that the city complies with the Open Meetings Act, which they haven't. And there are a number of issues, and I've got a lot of material here. I'll just leave it for you because I think there's probably a lot going on. The city has an absolutely wonderful website for this, but it's not being used. And most of the boards and commissions are not posting their meetings or minutes and or agendas. State law requires that at the beginning of each either calendar or fiscal year that every entity posts a schedule of meetings for the year. And nor the council nor any of the boards and commissions are doing that right now. So the Open Meetings Act, which is not really fun reading, but it's pretty clear on what it requires. And part of it is if you have a website, you need to have those on the website. And having been through the whole thing with the solar farm, finding out how difficult it was to find information, you need to be as transparent as possible. And it would seem like it's a pretty simple thing to do because you've got the website, the back end's there. Just go through the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission. No upcoming meeting schedule posted. Last agenda May 9th of this year and March 6th. So they seem like they're pretty good. Board of Police Fire Commissioners. Last agenda posted was December 12th of 2022, and there are no current meetings posted. Is it Citizen Utility Boards are going? Okay, so that's why they're just not there. The Fire Pension Board, last agenda posted was August 24th of 2018. Last minutes posted was April 21st of 2023. Historic Preservation, August 8th of 2023 for agendas. Last minutes, December 13th, 2022. The Industrial Development Commission no longer exists, correct? Those probably ought to be taken. Lovejoy Homestead Board of Trustees, no upcoming meeting schedule, no current agendas, no current minutes. Probably the most troubling one is the Library Board, which last time I checked does levy taxes. No upcoming meeting schedule posted, no current agendas, and no current minutes. Planning Commission, and I know we went through that, they have gotten better. I have a couple questions though. They never post an agenda for their lunch meeting. And I'm kind of wondering why they don't do that. And I guess they have a lunch meeting, and the regular meeting probably would be the dinner meeting? I don't know. Police Pension Board, last agenda posted was April 25th of 2019. Last minutes posted were January 25th of 19. And the Public Arts Commission seems to be doing pretty well. Last agenda posted March 23rd of this year, and last minutes was March 21st of this year. The Open Meetings Act clearly requires that you post that to your website, and you're in violation of state statute. Furthermore, having been appointed to the governor's local journalism task force, I was required to take the open meetings training. I don't know if you all have done the open meetings training, but anybody on any board and commission is required to do that as well too. So that probably would be worth a check to do. It's very painless. It doesn't take very long, but it is a wealth of information. And given my background, I strongly believe that good government is transparent, and these are great ways to make it transparent. Thanks for your time. I appreciate what you all do. And Ray, it looks good out there.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Sam. Well, we have some homework assignment to work on, and we appreciate the challenge, Sam, and we may resource you to help with this challenge. So we would appreciate your help on that.
Yeah, okay.
Is there anyone else for public comment this evening? Again, you'll have another chance at the end of the meeting. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and approve the minutes from the regular council meeting, please.
Move that we approve the minutes from our regular council meeting on August 7th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or comments?
The only comment that I have is that we can go ahead and change the for Dr. Foley's thing for his service was to the American Legion.
What did I put?
AMBIT, which is an organization, veterans organization that also meets in the same building.
Okay.
So we have VFW, AMBIT, and American Legion, and then we all do things as a Princeton veterans.
Very good. For those of you in the audience tonight that weren't with our last meeting, we recognize Dr. Foley. We extended condolences to his family, and we discussed his career in Princeton as a doctor, as well as his very active career working with the different military organizations in Princeton. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Appreciate your comments, Sir Hector. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Newman.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
McCall. Aye. Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Now we'll go to invoices, please.
For this period in the Department of Accounts and Finances, we have invoices totaling $136,029.99. In the Department of Streets and Public Improvements, we have invoices totaling $87,346.70. In the Department of Public Safety, we have invoices totaling $162,023.80. And then in the Department of Public Property and Utilities, we have invoices totaling $932,351.73 for a grand total of $1,317,752.22. Mayor, all council members present have confirmed their reviews of all invoices and now are submitted for disposition.
I move that we approve the invoices as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Newman.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
McCall. Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Now we'll go to suspension of the requirements for a second reading of ordinance 023012.
I move that we suspend the requirement for a second reading of ordinance O-23-012.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions concerning this? Okay. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Newman.
Aye.
Gomez.
Abstain?
Abstain.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Mabry.
Here, I'm sorry. Aye.
I got this all messed up.
That's right. Want to start over?
I'm sorry.
How about McCall?
Aye.
McCransky is absent. And Mayor Mabry says?
Yes. Aye.
Aye, okay. That carries.
Okay, we're good. Okay, well, now we'll go to the next ordinance, please.
I move that we approve ordinance O-23-012.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Teresa, would you just elaborate a little bit about this ordinance, what we're doing tonight, please?
In your packet, you'll see the photos of excess equipment. One being a front bumper of a Dodge, two being the rear bumper of a Dodge, and four tires. Basically, when we are, as they are rebuilding the new brush truck, there's pieces of equipment that are on the truck that need to be changed out for the purposes of the truck. So in order to save money on building the brush truck, we have decided to have our fleet mechanics do it in-house because it was going to speed it up, and it also did save a little bit of money. So all the components are now being switched out. So these are pieces that they still felt there's a lot of value to them, and definitely would like to put those out there. So
Great. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, we'll go ahead now. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Newman.
Aye.
Gomez.
Just abstain.
Pardon?
Abstain.
You two X's on you now. McCall. Aye. Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Thank you, Pete.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution R-23-017. This is a resolution authorizing the sharing of costs between the City of Princeton and IDOT to repair pavement at the intersection of Main Street and Peru Street. Mayor, all council members have reviewed this resolution and it is submitted for disposition.
I move that we approve resolution R-23-017.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions for the council? And Teresa, would you just elaborate on this one as well, please?
Sure. This project is the main intersection of Main and Peru. Everybody knows that intersection there is getting very, very bad. We approached IDOT last year, so this has actually been a pretty quick process. It was not on their radar for probably the next 6 to 7 years at least to have that intersection redone. We are in the process of scheduling our Main Street, actually the downtown, to be resurfaced. So as we were doing that, we would like to have the intersection done as well. So through some discussions with IDOT and our state reps, we did get this moved up, surprisingly. So IDOT has been willing to work with us, and the good thing about doing that intersection now, one, we have some cost savings when we do Main Street and this project together, but also we do have a significant cost share with IDOT, not just state, with federal funds as well. So as you can see in the resolution there, our portion of the local share will be just over $43,000. So this includes the entire intersection, all the aprons, all of the sidewalks, all new lights, everything at that intersection. So it'll all be upgraded. So the state portion will be over $700,000, and the federal portion will be about $175,000. So in grand total, just under $1 million for the project, and our portion is $43,000. So in order to get that project done, I think that's a fair approach to this. So, and we were able to move it up much sooner than what we could have ever anticipated. So.
Any tentative schedule, Teresa?
It would be spring of next year, or next spring. So, and then we will give a heads up to the businesses because the entire Main Street will be a mess. Do it all at one time. That's my theory. Get it all done at one time and disrupt things.
We appreciate the previous council working on that. That's a great project, Teresa, so thank you. And what a bargain. If we can get $1 million of work done for roughly $40,000, we'll take that any day.
I guess I should say they are aiming for a January bidding, so very good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Newman.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
McCall.
Aye.
Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Thank you. Now we'll go to the city manager report.
Just a reminder, we are accepting bids for the electric generation accessory building right across the street over here from 8/8 of 23 open until I believe it's Thursday, this coming Thursday, the 24th. So the packet should be posted on the website.
It is.
Okay. And then we do have the packets down in City Hall downstairs too, if anybody needs that. Otherwise, give us a call if you have questions. And then also in your packet, as usual, we have the fire pension report for June of 23.
Very good. Okay, now we're down to the mayor's report, and I'm going to go over to the podium here. We're going to discuss a couple things. A couple things I could this evening. First off, I enjoy what I call small victories. So I appreciate working with Teresa the past 90 days, 3.5 months as mayor. I really enjoy working with her. I enjoy working with Pete. We have our challenges that happen just to come up, not with Pete and I, but I should say, we have our challenges that come up as a mayor, whether it might be potholes that need to be filled, or sidewalks that we need to work on for trip hazards, or garbage that didn't quite get picked up at somebody's house, or it might be things like that. And I appreciate the full-timers at City Hall that I can resource to fill getting those things resolved. And then I also want to thank Janet Henning, that's our assistant city clerk, for her assistance as well. So I appreciate the staff. I appreciate the full-time department heads. I do want to commend a couple of departments this evening. The street department, they've been really working hard on curb and gutter, and they've been working hard on getting their catch basins done for the year. And when I say catch basins, when we have a heavy rain, all that rain and water comes off the streets and it has to go somewhere. And if you've been a resident of Princeton, we kind of know sometimes we end floating through areas after a heavy rain down by Ace Hardware, and sometimes down on South Main Street by Boyd, and sometimes out on Park Avenue West by Park Tavern. But they work on these diligently during the year to get them rebuilt and cleaned out. And the street department also has been working with sidewalks, and they've been working over on Church Street, taking some of the old brick out that was old sidewalks that are definitely not ADA accessible, and they're putting in some new sidewalks in those areas. So thank you to the street department for what they do, as well as they're getting the town spruced up, as we've got, I would say, Homestead, we've got 25,000 of our closest friends coming to visit the town. But we want to keep our community looking good for ourselves for the other 11 months and 3 weeks out of the year. So I appreciate that. I want to also say that on our ADA work, Americans with Disability Act, we worked on South Main Street. Teresa was able to come up with funds for the fixing these different intersections that were not ADA accessible. I call it the Clark House intersection there, four-way there by the Apollo Theater. Also, they went down, they did ADA work in front of the courthouse and in that area, and that was bid out and done through Advanced Asphalt. Advanced Asphalt did a tremendous job. Our own electric generation department went and they welded handrails, and the handrails were installed just today in front of the Clark House, and it really is a nice job. So we appreciate that being done in-house by our welder and his #1 assistant there, so we appreciate that. So kudos to those different departments. We're going to ask Victoria Yepsen just to come up for just a minute and give us a quick update on tourism. She's our director of tourism, please.
Good evening. Just as Mr. Mayor mentioned, we're getting ready for our, Happy Fair Week. I'm not prepared. Sorry. This week is Fair Week, so I think it's pretty incredible that Princeton is the host of the Bureau County Fair. We should all feel really proud of that. So festivities begin on Wednesday and then wrap up on Sunday. We also have Homestead coming up. We will kick off Homestead with our Star and Plaque dedication for Gary Green on Thursday at 4 p.m. And then our street concert with Freebird Leonard Skinner Tribute Band from 6 to 10 on Thursday. And then Homestead, aside from its traditional festivities, we have introduced the Hot Air Balloon Festival. So there will be tethered rides available and balloon glows on Friday and Saturday evening. That's going to be a huge weekend for Princeton. I also will be bragging about Princeton on WGN with John Williams. So tune in. We're going to be doing a feature with their Midwest is Best show, and we'll get to entice people to follow our webpage and things like that, and offer a weekend getaway here. So we're really excited about that. If you have not already gone to check out the Military Appreciation exhibit at the Historical Society, that continues to be open from 12 to 5, Wednesday through Saturday. And anything else that I'm missing?
You've done a great job with
Okay.
the street concerts. I was going to say, you've done a great job with those. We appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Yes, we just had all hands on deck for the reschedule last week, and I think it was a great success. And I'd like to thank the city departments as well. We meet every month, and everyone gives up their time, and we would not be able to do that without all hands on deck. So I also have some Homestead schedule flyers over there if you guys want to see a list of the scheduled events all weekend.
Hey, Victoria, do I mention the website finally?
Our
updated website.
Yes, our tourism website was dormant for, I think, 3 years, but it's up and running, and you can check out events. So if anyone wants to know the information about any events we have coming up, they're all on there. Our attractions, places to stay, everything's listed out there.
What's the address?
PrincetonTourism.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Okay, continue with the theme of Positively Princeton. We always learn every council meeting about something. It might be a business that we weren't aware of was in the community, or we were aware but we didn't know much about it. And we have a lot of different organizations that are in the community. Tonight we're going to be hearing from the Aruka Institute of Healing, and representing that is we have 3 folks here. We have Sarah Scruggs, we have Tom Kammerer, and we have retired Mayor Keith Kane. So whoever would like to come up and speak first, I understand you've got a PowerPoint presentation as well. It's exciting. So come on up and just introduce yourself and tell us about Aruka, please.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. As Mayor said, I'm Sarah Scruggs. I give a lot of talks, and this is by far my favorite, to speak to my hometown. I was born and raised in Princeton. I graduated from Princeton High School. One thing you might not know about me, because I left Princeton, I went to college, I did my doctorate, I worked in Los Angeles for a while before I came back. But one thing you might not know about me is I'm also an adult that's living with an anxiety disorder. I was diagnosed when I was in college. I'm certain I was struggling with that disorder here in Princeton. I did graduate valedictorian of my class at Princeton High School, so I learned clearly how to cope with that. But that is something that I learned much more about after I had left Princeton, Illinois, moved to Chicago, and started school at the University of Illinois, Chicago. And that, in many ways, has been responsible in part for why I have come back to this area and started Aruka. but I've also had a significant amount of mental illness and substance use in my family. And I can tell you that when I moved back 10 years ago, we didn't have services for my family member. And I can stand here in front of you today and tell you that now we do. And if we would have had those services 10 years ago, things would have been very, very different. And things are good now, but it would have taken us a lot shorter of a time to get to where we needed to be, rather than driving 2 hours out of town, going here, going there, just trying to find the right services for what we needed. So I want to present to you Aruka tonight, but I want to tell you that, you know, sometimes we look at these things as being done to us, right? We go through hard things in life, but I really look at this as something that was done for myself and my family. And this is something that, you know, it doesn't stop with the illness. This can be a story of empowerment and abundant life if you can have the right resources. And I am a perfect example of that. So I'm going to kind of pace, keep you awake. But I have my slides over here, and because I have a Mac and Apple always does things their own way, the clicker wouldn't work with my laptop. So this is my title slide. So I want to just talk about Aruka. We started in a church, New Hope Church, graciously. Actually, let me back up. 2017, we were in my living room at 308 Park Avenue West, the founding board members and I sitting around the living room table, trying to understand what we were dealing with. And I have a PhD in, I've done research for 18 years, and I naturally went to the data sources, any data I could get my hands on. We were trying to understand how to even quantify what we were seeing in the community. So we started in my living room in 2017. New Hope Church graciously opened up their parsonage to us, and that was our first building in 2018. We started with a budget of about $50,000 our first year, and in 6 years we've grown to 54 employees and a budget of it's right around $4 million. So we've experienced very, very, very rapid growth. And I say growth is not the goal. Meeting the need is. So Aruka grows to meet the need, and we will continue to grow until we feel that we have broken down barriers of access for the people of this community. So we serve over 6,000 annually within 3,100 square miles. We currently serve 5 counties. Bureau is one of our 5 counties. Last year, the state asked us to take on Grundy County as well. So we provide services there. And so it's about an hour or a bit, maybe even a little more if you go from the west to the east of our service area. So we have some innovative strategies, and one of those is, if you can see, mobile offices. We have our headquarters is here in Bureau County. It's here in Princeton. We are opening a second building in LaSalle County this next month. But we have what are called mobile offices. So we have minivans that we equip with all of the resources that our therapists need, and we have what we call mobile offices. So we a lot of times take our services to people. So the way we work within this large surface area is when people are on shift, they have sort of a starting point that isn't maybe in Princeton, it's a little more central, and then they can go and deliver services in a faster way. So the response time isn't as long as if we had to drive an hour every time to serve people. We are so these are our state designations, our community mental health center. So we're that's within the Department of Human Services, the Division of Mental Health. That's a designation. It's called the Community Mental Health Center. We're also a certified community behavioral health clinic. That's a federal designation. There are only 17 in the state of Illinois, and we were one of them. So that's a federal grant that I'm not going to be able to talk about tonight, but that's a very innovative model, and it's the future of behavioral health. And we have one of those centers right here, so we should all be proud of that. We're funded by HRSA, SAMHSA, CDC at the federal level. We also have funding from the Department of Human Services at the state, private grants, donations, and we also bill insurance. So we have a pretty diverse revenue model. We also are federally underserved in mental health, as I talked about with my own story. We have about 78 providers per 100,000 people. The state average is 208, so we're less than half right now of providers. So what does Aruka do? We sort of have three arms to our services. One day I will add a fourth arm, and that will be research, my passion. But right now we need to serve people, so this is how we do that. We have prevention and wellness. And I'm going to talk about our mind-body therapy program and our WORD video-based team. So I'm going to not describe those at this time. Treatment, we have clinical counseling, what you might expect. You call, you make an appointment, you can come in, you can see a therapist. We have 17 therapists that can do all kinds of psychotherapy depending on what your condition is. We also recently hired Dr. Shepard, who's a psychiatrist at St. Margaret's. So he and his nurse now work with us and provide psychiatry and medication management. He's a really special person. He is a doctor that thinks outside the box, and we have already begun to think about together in our integrated care model how we can get out in the community more and serve folks that, coming into the office just isn't something they're able to do. We also have around-the-clock, 24/7, 365 mental health and substance use crisis services. So who's heard of 988? It's very slowly getting out there, but it's basically the mental health complement of 911. So before, and we have Chief Kammerer here, but our law enforcement officers were our crisis response system before 988. If someone was in mental health crisis, they would either go to the ER or they would call 911, and our law enforcement would respond. Well, we realized that wasn't fair to them. They're not mental health professionals. Now, people like Chief Kammerer, which has trained his entire department in crisis intervention training, but that wasn't a requirement. That's because he saw the need. Most law enforcement officers aren't equipped to deal with mental health and substance use crisis. So finally, there was some federal legislation to implement 988. And it's pretty slow to take off, I will say, but we have a service that's alive and well in this community. Aruka is one of those provider groups. North Central Behavioral Health is also one. So if someone in Princeton, for example, calls 988, it'll go to a call center in Bloomington called PATH. They will triage the call, and if someone needs an in-person response, they call us. And we will go to their home, their place of work, wherever the crisis is occurring. We work very, very closely with law enforcement to do that, because as you can imagine, I'm not very comfortable sending my unarmed therapists into unknown places. So we work very, very well with the police. We wear these wearables. We have all kinds of safety measures that we put in place to keep people safe. But that has been inordinately effective. And Chief Kammerer is going to talk about that a little bit later. We have recovery support. We employ persons in long-term recovery because they are the best at developing relationships with persons in active substance use. If any of you have ever walked through substance use or you have a close friend or family member that's walked through it, it's really, really difficult to seek treatment when you're in that position. So recovery support specialists go out and bridge connections with persons in active substance use and build relationships with them. We do harm reduction to keep them safe. So even if they continue to use, we're keeping them safe. We're trying to tell them we care about you, even if you're still in your addiction. And we see continually people transitioning to higher levels of care because of that compassionate approach to substance use. We also have Strengthening Families program, which is a family therapy. We treat the whole family. The family comes in, the kids go in one room, they have their therapist, and the parents go in another room. We cook a meal together. It's a wonderful program. Then everybody comes back together, and we do a family therapeutic intervention. It's a 14-week program, and we have a really high success rate for graduation from that program. And that is an evidence-based program that breaks the cycle of mental health and addiction in families. It's a proven program. Then we also have group therapies, which are basically counseling but done in groups with evidence-based practices. Lastly, innovation and collaboration. This is really, my love is innovation. As a scientist, I like to look at problems. I like to quantify them. I like to look at what people have done before and published in the literature. And then we take that model and we build it and make it fit the needs of our community. C5 Rural, again, I'm going to just brush over these. I really want to be respectful of time. Do we have a hard stop?
We started an hour early, starting about a month ago.
So 2 hours, is that good? Kidding. No, okay. All right, so, sorry. So C5 Rural is a coalition. We bring 42 community partners together once a month to collaborate and talk about long-standing mental health and substance use issues in our community. So we have law enforcement, schools, churches, hospitals, behavioral health organizations, advocacy groups, persons with that are in recovery join us, and it's a wonderful way to collaborate and attack this big problem together. It's just a much more efficient way to do it. We have the living room, which we're going to talk a little bit about later. We have school-based mental health services. We collaborated with Memorial School to secure a U.S. Department of Education grant for about $6.9 million. And we poured that money into 7 local schools in Bureau and LaSalle County. And those schools have now been able to hire more social workers in their school to be able to provide better services to kids. That grant also funds some Aruka counselors to go into the schools to actually provide therapy, different than what school social workers do. So it's a really nice partnership and collaboration. I'm not going to talk about the CCBHC. We launched a farmer mental health program a few years ago, and we're continuing to modify that to get that right, to make sure that we can serve our farmers. And then we have a recovery housing program, which I'll also talk about in a future slide. So why we started, I don't know if any of you knew this, but I think it was, I can't remember, it was Terry Madsen that said, you know, Aruka initially was just like 3 girls in a yoga mat. Like, we started off with yoga services. And why did we do that? I particularly was not a yogi. I didn't do yoga my whole life. I learned the practice of, we call it mind-body therapy, that's the scientific term. Yoga kind of carries a religious connotation, so we keep it scientific. We call it mind-body. It's breathing and stretching. Why do we do this? Well, it's because anybody from age 5 to 95 can practice in the same room all at once, and we see this regularly. You can do it whether you're in a wheelchair, you have to sit in a chair, or whether you have your full range of motion and you can be down on your knees on the floor. But it is incredibly effective at reducing your anxiety and depressive symptoms when you have mental illness. It's incredibly effective at reducing your symptoms that go along with withdrawal from a substance. We offer in our Princeton studio here 12 weekly wellness classes. It really integrates the functioning of the mind and the body and the spirit. I'll add that. It decreases those symptoms I talked about. It can also, medication, if any of you take medication or if you know someone that does, a lot of times medication will only remove a portion of your symptoms, maybe 30-40%. If you put medication along with mind, body, and with psychotherapy, you can usually get to about 100%. You can get much greater symptom reduction when you partner these things together. And if medication isn't for you, this is a great alternative. These are some of the data from our participants that have practiced for more than 1 month. You see on the left-hand side, 70 to 90% report increases in strength, flexibility, balance, mood, reduced anxiety and stress. And then on the right side, about half-ish report improvements in depression, peace, and sleep quality. So this is something we see consistently, and they're really low cost. Our classes are $5, and if you can, and it's like $30 for a month membership. If you can't afford that, we serve anyone regardless of their ability to pay, and that's counseling, psychiatry, that's all of our services. So Worth is a program for teen prevention. We make videos in-house that are about 5 minutes long, and these go into the school every single week of the school year. These are currently in 24 junior and senior high schools in 4 counties, and they serve about over 5,000 students every week. And then we also provide leadership groups that sort of go deeper, so these are once a month, where a trained leader meets with a student leadership group, and they talk about the videos more in depth. And these are at Ottawa, Mendota, Depew, Hall, Lamoille, and Princeton right now. So I'm going to show you this video. Stephen, will my audio through the HDMI? You good? Okay. I want to show you this video because this is the best way for you to understand. Oh, wait, I need to get on my hotspot.
I could start by informing you of all the medical research behind why you shouldn't vape. I could give you facts and figures. I could talk about hospitalizations and deaths. But I'm not here to do that today. Today, I'm here to tell you a story. And it's a story about an experiment.
You are worth it. You were created for a purpose. You matter.
It was the 1960s. The United States was in the midst of a cultural revolution focused on love and openness. The economy was growing, and your average American family participated in many of the similar activities that we do today. Barbecues and swimming pools were still great, but underneath it, there was a secret no one was talking about. Big tobacco companies have been lying about the nicotine levels in cigarettes since 1954. Beginning in 1964, cigarette companies began selling an alternative cigarette, a light cigarette, that was a safer option, despite knowing that, scientifically speaking, there's no such thing as a non-harmful cigarette. It doesn't exist. In a 1971 interview, the president of Philip Morris said that yes, it was true, babies born to mothers that smoked were smaller, but some mothers would prefer a smaller baby, and they were just as healthy.
Babies born from women who smoke are smaller, but they're just as healthy as the babies born from women who do not smoke.
What about the higher
And
rate
some
of
women would
deaths?
prefer having smaller babies.
They marketed cigarettes to healthy individuals, just like vaping is being marketed to you today. I bring this up because I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know what the long-term side effects of vaping are going to be. But you know what? It's going to take a long term to figure that out. Because we don't know. It just came into being. So if we look at the long-term side effects of vaping, that might not be known for years and years and years. And if we look back at the 60s and 70s, and we see that Americans were smoking cigarettes at record high numbers. Let me ask you a question. What was happening during that time? I can tell you right now that an experiment was taking place. The long-term effects of cigarette smoke was being conducted on people smoking during the 60s and 70s. And we as Americans figured out that it was harmful. We figured out that it was bad for us, and we stopped smoking so much. So you know where big tobacco companies put their time, their energy, their money? They put it into vaping, and they put it into marketing to healthy individuals. Like the Philip Morris president who said that some people would rather have smaller babies. That was an experiment. That was an experiment that was happening in real time. And right now, vaping is an experiment. The long-term side effects, we don't know what's happening. But you are participating in an experiment. You are participating in an experiment. It is an experiment that might take years and years, but it is an experiment. Do you want to be a mouse in an experiment? I don't think so. We're at a new point in our timeline. The same big tobacco companies are still selling you a product that has 0 positive outcomes. And you know how they're selling it to you? Because you are their test subject. You don't want to be a test subject because you are worth it.
So all of our videos end with that you are worth it. That's why it's called worth it. So one of these goes into schools every week, so the kids get 34 doses of prevention every single year. And Winston the Mouse, he's somewhere in our timber, unfortunately, but he did have a good run. Okay. So I'm going to actually, sorry, I should.
It's very good information.
Yes, thank you. I'll share that with the team. Thank you. I'm going to go quickly through the next 2 slides. I want to talk to you about why we developed My board president, Keith Kane, is telling me yes, go quickly. So I want to tell you why we developed the crisis. What's that?
Crisis bedtime.
Yeah. Why we developed the crisis care model. And this is sobering, but it's true. This is what we were seeing in our community. In 2020, we were seeing 500, this is only in 6 months, we were seeing 555 doses of Narcan being administered to people, and to 313 people. And in 2021, we saw that spike to 915 doses. That's over 1,800 doses a year. This is 6-month data. And so we were seeing an increase in the number of doses given to each person, meaning our drugs were getting stronger. We were seeing deaths at a really high rate. First responders in our communities were giving out 5 doses of Narcan every single day. Does anybody know what Narcan is? Reverses an overdose. Okay. As you saw in the previous slide, we were seeing an increase in overdose and Narcan administered. In our schools, we were seeing substance use doubling between 8th and 12th grade. And this is more recent data. I got 22 data and put it in here, but our emergency department showed an increase, and this is percent increase of 108% for substance use visits and 139% for mental illness. That's more than double. We also saw, and now this is in Bureau County. We were tracking this because we had launched our services in 2020. We have actually, and I believe not fully because of Aruka, there's a lot of other wonderful agencies working in partnership with us, but we have actually reduced overdose-related deaths in Bureau County in the last 2 years. But we're just seeing them nearly, or we saw between 2020 and 22, we saw them increase nearly 80% in LaSalle County. And this is how we measure how well we're doing. We measure things like this. We measure a whole lot of other things too to give us information on the process. So we partnered with our law enforcement. We thought, who is doing this good work? And we listened, we learned from law enforcement. We hopped in the cop car with them. We drove around with them, our counselors, so we could learn what these crises look like. We were very data-driven and systematic about it. We were looking at the LE data on substance use and mental illness. Where do these occur? What time do these occur? What do they look like? How can we be there to help? And then we continually meet with law enforcement agencies. I think there's about 17 or 18 in total that come together every quarter to talk about this problem. So this is the type of data we were collecting to see when these crises occurred, and this is how we ended up staffing our model. And this is our crisis model that we came out with initially. The middle response is at 988. Someone calls, they're in crisis, they're in mental health or substance use crisis. The law enforcement officer, the ER doc, or the nurse, the primary care provider, the schools, they can call us into that. If somebody is not in crisis but they're having a bad week, they're at risk, the workflow on the left, there's a QR code. Chief Cameron is going to show you that in a little bit, where anybody can submit a digital referral and we will pay them a visit. Usually our response time is about 1 day for those non-emergency. And then on the right side, we started an officer wellness aspect. We were already sitting in cop cars with officers on, out in the field with them. And this was kind of an unintended benefit, but law enforcement officers started talking to our therapists about all the trauma and things that they had been through in their life. And we thought, let's do officer wellness. We have the relationships now. So that was a very cool unintended benefit, but we've recently received a state grant, which I think Tom's going to talk about, to really launch that program. Tom will talk about this. This is what our crisis continuum looks like now. The version 2.0 in 2023. We have a lot of different components. We don't just wait until someone's in escalated crisis to respond. We try to really respond upstream. We try to take a very preventative approach, because there's not a lot you can do in an escalated crisis therapeutically, other than really de-escalate that person, keep them safe, and keep them stable. So I'm not going to get into each one of these steps. I'm just going to breeze through. But we respond in twos. We respond anywhere where the person is. We respond 24/7, 365. We will serve anyone regardless of their age or place of residence. We will serve them regardless of ability to pay or payer type. We will always create a safety plan for them for follow-up care, and we connect that person through a warm handoff. If they have a therapist already or a doctor they work with or another social service agency, we will connect them and make sure they can get there. And this is trauma-informed and recovery-oriented, and we've provided a mobile response to over 1,800 rural persons in the 3,100 miles. And those are unduplicated people. I'm not going to talk about outreach and engagement, but Tom, why don't you take over and talk about the crisis stabilization?
I'm going to stand over here.
Too much light.
I'll probably trip if I do.
You got 2 more slides.
So, as Sarah mentioned, we have a 24/7 crisis response that we've been doing really since 2019. And all of our officers carry a card in their pocket that looks like this. And on the front is a phone number that is for law enforcement and emergency room staff. There's 4 criteria on here. If the person they're dealing with meets any of these 4 criteria, they call this crisis line, and a trained counselor will respond to help them or even take over that call. If it's not an emergency, on the back there's a QR code. The folks can scan that QR code, and they'll get into the queue so that somebody from Aruka will respond to them within 24 hours to help them with their crisis situation. So the living room was something that when I worked up in Naperville, we had access to a living room in DuPage County. It was a place where they staffed it with folks with lived experience, and the officers could take people up there that were not quite in crisis but getting there, drop them off, and the folks there were trained to help de-escalate whatever that situation was that they had going on. We opened our living room August 22nd of last year, so just about a year tomorrow. And we've seen numerous folks in there, but I want to talk about one in particular. I'm not going to mention any names, but this one really kind of stands out, and there are a lot of stories like this. So there's a young lady that we had dealt with 48 times leading up to August 24th of last year, and had dealt with her hundreds of times in the years prior to that for overdoses and a variety of other things. On August 24th of last year, we connected her with some folks from the living room. She was pregnant at the time and still utilizing intravenous drugs. And through the work of the staff in the living room, they were able to get her into recovery. She has since delivered her baby, and she's now going to school. And, you know, to hear stories like this, you know, I've been doing this almost 30 years. These are wins in my book. And just last week, I was approached by another person that's had a similar story that approached me as I was at Walmart, thanking me for connecting her with these services as well. It's saving lives, truly. In 2020, we had 8 heroin overdose deaths in town here. Since then, we've only had 1 each year, and 1 is too many, but we've seen a huge decrease in that, and a lot of it has to do with the work that we're putting in, addressing these mental health issues and trying to catch some of this stuff upstream so that we're not having to deal with the adverse effects of it in the end. In 2021, we had 364 mental health and substance use related calls in Princeton. In 2022, we had 320. Thus far this year, we've only had 59. So you can see the trend tracking down. By being able to refer people to these resources, it gets them out of the cycle of the law enforcement response, which, you know, unfortunately and sadly can be tragic sometimes. We've been pretty lucky here. We've, like Sarah mentioned, we've trained up our folks, not just here, but all across the 4 counties, of how to deal with mental health crises, and I think we've gotten much, much better at that. The living room operates under a federal grant, and the goal of our grant is to reduce unintentional death due to overdoses. And so I think we're meeting our expectation on that grant. What I'm really kind of excited to talk about tonight is a grant that we just received earlier this year, and it's a first responder suicide prevention and wellness grant, a very significant grant through the state of Illinois that works with all first responders in the 4 counties that we cover. It also provides for resilience training for their families, which is really important because, unfortunately, sometimes some of the things that we see, whether we're police or fire or dispatchers, those things come home with us, and our families are the ones that end up hearing about it. They need to know how to help us out through that kind of stuff, too.
We're hiring 2 counselors that will only be treating first responders and their families as a part of this grant. And really most importantly is we've been training up officers, firefighters, dispatchers in what's called peer support. So amongst us, there will be folks that are trained in how to deal with, if I have a coworker or somebody from another department that's dealing with some sort of stress, they can reach out anonymously through this peer support program and be connected with somebody that can connect them with the resources that they need, and it all stays anonymous. There's a huge stigma in the first responder population. I can attest to it. I've lost some close friends to suicide that I've worked with over the years, and I think if we would have had programming like this then, we probably could have avoided some of that. There's a risk to us of losing our jobs if we talk about things like this. And so having it available anonymously is a huge step forward, and hopefully more of us seeking support for those kind of things. So I know everybody wants to get out here. It's almost 7 o'clock. So if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I believe we're all humbled by what we hear. When we think about our community, I've lived here myself 63 years, and sometimes we realize there's a lot more going on with people that are hurting. And it seems like, especially now, with society, we've kind of lost the kindness in life, and kids are on their cell phones and are disconnected, and parents are trying to get their kids to sit down and eat supper, and the kids are texting each other. And I just feel like technology has been a challenge, and I know that then we take on this vaping, and there's just so many distractions for these young people today. And then we got our adults. When I say young people, we got adults that are fighting those same challenges. So I want to say thank you for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. The City Council is going to be very supportive of Aruka. We've got something that will be announced in the future for you folks, and we're excited about it. And that's as a whole, as a council, supporting you. And so we just want to say thank you for being here tonight. And okay, we're going to go ahead now and go to old business. Is there any old business to bring before the council this evening? Is there any new business to bring before the council this evening? Okay, now we're back down to public comment. Anybody else with public comment? Very good. Jerry, if you would, we're going to adjourn the meeting, please.
Move that we adjourn our regular council meeting this evening and reconvene again for our next council meeting on Tuesday, September 5, 2023, 6 o'clock at City Hall.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Newman.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
McCall. Aye. Mayor Mabry.
Aye. This meeting is closed, and we'd like you to stick around and visit with Aruka or anyone else here this evening. Thank you.